Hey guys, Civilord here, back again with another action figure review, and today, my friends, we are finally taking a look at the very controversial Marvel Legends Maximum Series Spider-Man, brought to us by, we'll just call them the folks over at Hasbro, because in my opinion, I don't believe they deserve to be referred to as fine folks or not so fine folks in this case, because I am very split on this figure. First and foremost, I'm going to tell you it's not worth 50 bucks. That said, I'm not going to say it's absolute garbage either, and we're going to talk about all that, but first, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, why don't we cut right to the chase and get into the meat and taters of this review and take a look-see at all that Spider-Man has to offer in terms of accessories, because there are quite a few. So let's try and blitz through these as quick and painless as we can and possibly fail miserably in the process. Starting off with small hands. He's got grip hands with the appropriate hinge for holding things like useless web lines. Don't worry, we get a couple of those too. Hold your horses, because we also get a couple of thwip hands, one of which the pinky appears to be severely bent on, so I may need to heat that up and straighten that out, unless it's supposed to be like that, but it looked kind of weird that way, if I'm being honest. Said we also have a pair of wall crawling hands, which should be a standard Spider-Man figures, as well as whip hands. So technically speaking, we get two sets of hands that, yeah, every Spider-Man figure should come with, dadgummit. And we also have a couple of thwip hands with some web effects coming out of them. Those are pretty cool. I like those quite a bit. I like that they're different too. We also get his exposed forearms. Would have been nice to get two sets of these, considering he's, only 50 bucks. But there you go. He's got his exposed forearms with his web shooters there. We also get a couple of different heads. We get this masked head with a more wincing eye, which looks pretty cool. But we also get the spawn of the Crypt Keeper. I don't know what the heck they were thinking when they gave us this head. I would have rather they just give us the same Peter Parker head they've been giving us for years, but maybe swap the hair out. That would have been fine. You also get his spider sense, which you can put on either of the mastheads. It actually fits pretty good. Hopefully it doesn't scratch the paint when you're popping it on there. That said, we do get a couple more web effects. We get this web net and this web sperm, for lack of a better term, because let's just call a spade and say that that looks like something that comes out the tip of my penis. We also get a web shield and a stand for those web effects I just showed. But I couldn't figure out where the peg holes were, but it does have an articulation point here and here. And feels kind of gummy, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of weird. And last but certainly least, we do have a couple of web lines that are not bendy wire. For 50 bucks, I think they should have been, but that's just me. Do get handles for those grip hands on the ends though, so he should be able to hold them, and you could probably tie them. They're very soft, very pliable. I don't worry about these cracking or anything, but they are just rubbery web lines. And that is your lot. Was that $25 worth of accessories? Scale! No, I don't think so. But I paid it, so who's the dumbass in this situation? The numbskull behind the camera, that's who. So, taking a closer look at our quote-unquote Maximum Spider-Man here. Very Todd McFarlane-esque. I know some people are saying he's not Todd McFarlane-esque. Some people are saying he is. Some people are saying he's not accurate enough to be Todd McFarlane-esque. But then again, when does Spider-Man have birth-giving hips? I ask you, when does he ever have those? Because that's not accurate to the source material, but yet Hasbro seems to give them to us every freaking time. So that's kind of stupid. But as far as this figure goes, just in general, at first glance, without taking a close inspection at the web lines, which there are quite a few of them, so I'm sure there's something screwed up on mine somewhere, but, you know, being visually impaired kind of helps me not give a crap about the cleanliness of paint sometimes. Excuse me. So, I'm not going to say I'm going to let it slide, because for someone who can see, I can definitely see how that would be an issue. No pun intended. But at the same time, it's nothing that affects me personally. But for $50, on top of the fact we should have got a matte finish, yeah, clean paint, all the way, no excuses. But as far as articulation on this guy goes, his head can look back about this far, without monkeying with the neck. Can look down pretty well. Pretty decent amount of tilt. He does have a rotation as well in both the neck and the base of the skull, so that is pretty good. Shoulders will go out to the side about this far. He's got that beautiful butterfly, which looks okay from the front. Looks pretty atrocious from the back. I don't know why they didn't just make the spider symbol smaller, but whatever. I let Venom get a pass with that, so I guess I should do the same for him. Well, that Venom only cost $25, so no. He's got a bicep swivel, double elbow. That works fine. I will tell you, I did heat up the biceps and carefully remove them and put a dab of soap in there. They're a little bit more butter smooth. He does have a forearm twist due to the interchangeable arms. Then he does have swivel at the wrist with a hinge. That does work just fine. As far as his diaphragm is concerned, this is a little tricky because sometimes it's really tight. Sometimes it's easy to move. Right now it's very tight. But if I keep twisting it, it's going to wear itself out and not be nearly as loud in the clicky department. I like loud clickies, but mostly on Transformers. But yeah, you can spin that all around and totally botch the freaking costume, because that makes sense, right? That's accurate to the source material. His diaphragm joint can shift that far back, this far forward, which is pretty pitiful if you ask me. I think there are McFarlanes that move more than that. He will tilt side to side. Got an ab crunch. Moves back and forth, and moving all the way, that's about what you get. And that's about what you get back. He's got sucky drop-down hips, because I freaking love those. That will shift down. So you can not bring his leg all the way out to the side. That's pretty pathetic. For $50, I would expect him to be able to do full splits. Same with this side. Can't do it. He does not have full splits. Also feels like he's got some, not chewing per se, but some mold degradation on the hips there. So that's always nice. But kicking the leg forward, you get about that much. Kicking the leg back, you get about that much. He does have a thigh swivel. That, thankfully, is not as gummy. Double knee. That works okay. Boot cut. which again, had to heat up the boots to pop them off and put a dab of soap in there to loosen them up a bit. They work a lot better now, but they could have just been butter smooth out of the package. Same with this one. That said, he does have a hinge in the foot with a rocker. Kind of tight, but not as tight as some. And he's got a toe joint, which is hollow on the bottom, but really that doesn't bug me a ton. But it is there. And for 50 bucks, I would think he'd have solid feet, but whatever. It is what it is, I'm afraid. So, yes, essentially this is just a $25 Marvel Legends figure for 50 bucks. And I assume they're going to reuse this body to at least give us maybe Ben Reilly and a black costume Spider-Man. I heard a rumor of a Daredevil maybe, but only time will tell. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves again, why don't we cut right to the chase and move right along and take a look at some size comparisons to some other figures that I feel are warranting of the Maximum Series title. First up, and as promised, I wanted to compare this quote-unquote Maximum Series Spider-Man to a couple other figures brought to us by the fine folks over at Hasbro that could technically classify as Maximum Series releases. Those, of course, being the Target exclusive Black Widow and the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Retro Series Iron Man, both of which come with 3 interchangeable heads, 3 interchangeable sets of hands, although in Iron Man's case, maybe he only came with 2 sets of interchangeable hands and an extra grip hand for his big arse proton cannon, with blast effects and other effects of varying shapes and sizes. Black Widow herself comes with 3 sets of interchangeable gauntlets, 2 guns, and different effects for those guns. Both of these figures clocked in at around a $30 price point. Maybe Iron Man was a bit closer to $40, but at the time Marvel Legends, I do believe we're still clocking in at about a $20 price point, not the $25 to $27 they clock in at about nowadays. So there is that. So give or take inflation, I still think the Spider-Man is only worth about 40 bucks. But wait, there's still more, because we also have the Mindless One Build-A-Figure Wave Blade, the Blackheart Build-A-Figure Wave Moon Knight, the Walmart exclusive Doctor Strange, the Amazon exclusive Doctor Strange and Wong 2-pack, the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider, the Punisher War Journal 2-pack, the Iron Fist and Luke Cage 2-pack, the Deadpool and Hydra Bob 2-pack, which is probably the best example because that 2-pack shipped from Hasbro Pulse cost about $60. So you got a Deadpool with more accessories than everyone here for 30 bucks. I rest my case. And all the slurs that I may have said while trying to explain my very factual point there. So, getting these two out of the way, we can bring in our 2 regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibilith and the infamous 11 Spawn, who, as usual, towers over everyone because he is not a 6-inch scale figure. He also only costs 20 bucks. So that being said, it's time now that we wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, in the question all of you out there in YouTube land are probably wondering is this quote-unquote Maximum Spider-Man worth the $50 price tag? To which I say, hell no. I said it earlier in the review. Weren't you paying attention, you silly goose? However, if you're like me and you don't have Renew Your Vows, I would say it's worth the purchase, mostly because buyer's remorse stings a little less. when you don't have the thing everyone's going to compare it to, which is going to be either the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man or the Mafex Spider-Man. Me not having either of those made this an easy purchase for me. It was not that difficult of a decision for me to make. If you're in the same boat I am, I would say pick it up, because those other figures are definitely not $50 anymore. However, if you do already have those, maybe sleep on it. Maybe think about it. Maybe pass on it altogether, because like I said, there is not $50 worth of fun in this box. It's just not there. It's a really good Spider-Man. It's a McFarlane-style Spider-Man for the most part. Or, Eric Larson and Mark Bagley. The other two guys that drew Spider-Man in the 90s. All you people not naming them in your reviews. Poor shame. So, it hits certain buttons for me. But I understand if you're more of a modern Spider-Man fan or a Steve Ditko, Romita Sr. Spider-Man fan, this is not the Spider-Man for you. So, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this review. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.